Hello, and welcome everyone to our BG5 Live. Great to have each and every one of you here with us today. Today is November 1st. Can you believe it is the beginning of November? We only have 2 months left of this year. This year has been flying by. This is episode 180, and today we are going to take a look at trait 44. So in taking a look at trait 44, we're going to be taking a look at awareness leading to transformation. We'll talk about what that means here in just a moment. So before we get started, let's say hello to our panel. So let's start with Shelley. Hello, Shelley, welcome.
Hello, hello. Great to be here. Glad
Excellent.
that you found your way here. Looking forward to learning about awareness.
Excellent. Well, great to have you here, Shelley. And Anna.
Hi, all. Yeah, glad to be here as usual. And yeah, this will be interesting. One of my favorite traits.
Yes, excellent. Well, beautiful. Well, let's go ahead and dive right in. And again, if you are live here in our Zoom room, we would love to hear from you, especially if you do have a trait 44, if you have 26 on the other side. We'll also take a look at how you're affected when you are connected. Also, if you have stories or know someone who has the trait 44 and can illustrate a story of what the 44 is all about, we would love to hear from you as well. So let's jump in and get started. Again, taking a look at trait 44, awareness leading to transformation. So let's first take a look at November, because we have now shifted into November. And as we take a look at November, we'll notice that after the 44 is the last trait, and it looks like the 44 is the last trait here in the survival instinct. If you remember, we have been taking a look throughout October. All of the traits in October are survival trait. Survival trait in survival traits in the survival instinct. There we go. Traits in the survival instinct. Now that we're moving towards November, we're going to be shifting into purpose fulfilled through transformation. However, that's the theme for the overall November, but we are still in purpose fulfilled through bonding for one more week until we fully move into November. So November is an alertness to our own self-expression, allowing us to break through to our own power and focus. So again, this is the last trait that we'll take a look at in purpose fulfilled through bonding. So we're going to take a look at alertness. This then also moves us into transformation. So this is alertness moving us towards transformation. Next week, we're going to take a look at creative self-expression in the one. This is creativity rooted in a unique direction. We have breakthrough in the 43, insight, listening to your own inner voice. We have power skills in the 14, possession in great measure, fuel to empower. And we have personal power in the 34. This is the power of the great. This is the pure, unconditional power. And then we also have focus in the 9, the taming of the small and the energy for detail. What's interesting, if we take a look at most of these traits, if we take a look at trait 1, trait 43, trait 14, trait 34, they're all in the individual circuitry. So one of the other themes that you'll see in November is this real focus on empowerment. And we'll take a look at this individual personal empowerment. Focus is the only one that is part of logic. Everything else starting next week is all about empowerment. So that's what the theme of November is going to be as we step in. Now, we're going to be taking a look at this next week, but I also wanted to give you a heads up about next week as well. Next week's going to be a very interesting week, and I want to give you a heads up, and we'll talk more about this next week, because next week, November 8th, we have, so basically on November 5th, so this week we're going to be moving into the theme of transformation on November 5th. That's when we move from the 44 to the 1. And what's interesting is that the midterm elections in the United States are on November 8th. So that's going to be next week. And there's also a total lunar eclipse. And also what's fascinating here is anyone born on that day will have trait 2 in the driver in their career design 6 times. I mean, just imagine that for a moment, having one trait 6 times in your design and trait 1, creative self-expression, 4 times in their career design. So even if we just take a look at the eight, we'll notice that we have, we'll be moving into the 1. That's where we start the transformation, purpose fulfilled through transformation. So we have the 1 both in the core essence, also in the past direction, also in communication. So the 1 is quite prevalent. We will also, also next week as well, it will be also in our values as well. Then it'll move to the 43 after that. And then if we take a look at the 2, we have the 2 in the grounding, we have the 2 in the grounding driving force, we have the 2 in the future direction, we have the 2 in what's unusual. So I'm just bringing this up so that we can just start to pay attention. It feels like, the 1 and the 2 are in a sense the start. It's the pure, if you will, masculine and feminine, the pure, creative self-expression, more of the masculine feel and the feminine in balance. You'll notice that there's the grounding and balance of the 2 grounded in the driver, which is the most receptive. And so it'll just be interesting to see. It feels like there's a change in direction. There's a change in how things are working. And again, if we take a look at November being the month of self-empowerment as well, and empowerment in general, I should say. So it's really more about empowerment and individual empowerment. It'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out. So I just wanted to give you a heads up because we will be moving into trait 1 and moving into transformation this week as well. I don't know, Shelley or Anna, if there's anything else that you would like to add. Also, Ixel, we have Ixel here as well, who is also an evaluator. So I would just love to open it up if there's anything, just to, like I said, just looking ahead, giving people a heads up if there's anything that you see or anything that really stands out in watching for all of this next week.
Yeah, I have a comment. I mean, this is amazing, especially for the US with our elections. Crazy, crazy. But my one comment is with the 2 in ground and balance. And with the sort of the global conversation about climate change and earth changes and all this, I just think it's really interesting that the 2 is the most feminine. This is, and the feminine being grounded, being the ground we ground into. I just think, Gaia or the earth energy will be helpful if we listen to her.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you, Anna. Anything for you, Shelley?
Oh, just still pondering the amazing thing this is going to be. And does it stay long in these areas too, Karen?
Well, it will be in the 1 and the 2 as the core essence and the grounding and balance for a week, right? So we'll take a look at that next week, because that's where it'll be when we meet next week.
Yeah.
It's been in the past and future direction in the 1 and 2. It'll be there, I think, till sometime beginning of November. That's going to shift here shortly as well. It's also been in unusualness, uniqueness, for quite a while as well. So it's like everything is kind of culminating and coming together. So yeah.
Yeah, and I love how you explained the masculine, feminine too. It's interesting. I was thinking they would be the opposite, that the driving force of the 2 of the direction would be masculine and the creative self-expression would be feminine. But I find it interesting that it's the other way around. And I love what you said, Anna, about the direction of the planet, Gaia, Mother Earth, just being able to be more aware of and be more connected to the earth in the next couple of weeks at least, especially with the way these things are now. But also this kind of brings up for me, it's about our own personal direction and our own self-expression. As you already talked about, Karen, that's a real focus, empowerment, and finding our own direction and self-expression, and especially is going to be enhanced in these next couple of weeks. So I think it'd be interesting to just see how much people feel this in their daily life. I know that some of the traits really impact us and others we hardly notice. So it'd be really interesting to see if we feel the strength of all of the twos and the ones all at once, concentrated in this one time in the time period, the lunar eclipse. So this is like from the 8th on for a week, right? So it's going to be next week. Yes. Yeah, it'd be interesting. Can't wait to see how that plays out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, would love to
New
talk
direction.
about this next week as well as we enter into that and see what you have seen. So I just wanted to give everyone a heads up to pay attention to that as well. I don't know, Ixel, if there's anything that you would like to add or anything that you see, especially in being an evaluator.
Well, I really appreciate the different perspectives that have been brought up, but I'd like to take us out of the personal and into the where are we now? And we're in the 7 year before the shift happens of 2027. And this is a year that is a reflector year, which means it's really about aligning people because there is no general consistent thing that people can rely on in the year. The next time that we're going to have a reflector year, and this is from when it begins, when it goes into gate 41 in January, the next one will be 2027. And in between now and then, the next 4 years, there are going to be consistent, not traits, what do we call channels?
Strengths.
Strengths, thank you. Global conditioning themes, because there will be strengths defined. And so for me to notice this, and we're entering into the quarter of transformation, and we have 2 more months or so till the next cycle begins. If you stop and think about, have you had the opportunity to really hone into your own decision-making strategy? Because this is a year where you get to see, are you aligned with your strategy or not? Because there is less of a conditioning theme weighing on you. And so I think that this would be a very interesting question to ask those that are listening, those that are involved in any kind of transformation. We know that we're going into a global change. And this is the question. Have you aligned yourself to your own personal strategy and authority?
Yeah.
And that's what I have.
Yeah, I love it. And I really feel, I'm glad you brought up, this major transition between now and 2027. This feels like a precipice or a tipping point or a turning point in moving in that direction towards 2027, especially with all of these activations of the 1 and the 2. So it'll be interesting to see what continues to unfold. Beautiful. All right. Well, we will talk more about this next week, but I did want to give you a heads up. Excellent. So let's take a look at today's theme. And today's theme, we are still in purpose fulfilled through bonding. This is the last of all of the traits that are purpose fulfilled through bonding. It is also the last trait of the survival instinct. As I mentioned before, we've been exploring in October the activations of all of the traits of the survival instinct. And so it's interesting that it ends with the 44. And the 44 is also the fear of the past, right? So it's a fear of repeating, in a sense, also the mistakes of the past as well. So it really brings us alert and brings forth alertness, because then the next trait is about creative self-expression, and it moves into transformation. So I find it very interesting to, in a sense, be on high alert as we move in to this purpose fulfilled through transformation. So when we take a look at the 44, we're instinctively alert to the patterns around you that have been influenced from the fears of the past. So instinctive memory and alertness can manage and mold the collective. Okay, so the 44 is a tribal theme, is part of the tribal circuitry. But again, we have this instinctive memory, and it can also, again, affect how we see things collectively. And this is coming to meet. This can be the personnel manager or the handler, right? Because what it's pointing to willpower, which is also known as the ego. So it is, in a sense, the trait that can sort of handle or manage or work with the ego. So it can also be the handler as well. This is understanding also how propaganda works, right? This is alertness to the patterns. On the other side is the 26. So it also is about, this strength is about the transmitter. That's the name of the strength. But it's also understanding, in a sense, what people really need and being able to align products or service on the other side, sales and marketing, to what people really need. But this is an alertness to, in a sense, what is being sold, right? And how propaganda works. So this might be something to also pay attention to or look at this coming week. And again, this is the fear of the past. In a sense, it's interesting kind of leaving the past behind as we move forward into transformation, starting with the one once again. And our biggest fear is that the baggage from the past might catch up with us. And this is also removing the fears of the past to ensure material security as well as a healthy outcome. And so instinctively recognizing what is beneficial for the tribe or for the group or not. Right. So again, if we think about it, this is the traits or the energy that's moving us into also the midterm elections here in the United States. That alertness to, what's beneficial for the tribe or what's beneficial for the group. And this is also part of the immune system as well. Whoops. So again, it is what instinctively keeps us healthy. This is also attached to this sense of smell. So you can smell a rat or you can smell success. Or you can smell that something isn't quite right, right? So it is the alertness to your environment, the alertness to what people really need, and the ability to, in a sense, also handle the egos of others. So I would love to hear from Shelley and from Anna to start with. I believe both of you have this in your design, so I would love to hear how this shows up for you. Would you like to kick us off, Anna?
Yeah. So I have the 44 in my unconscious ground. And I love this trait. And it's always been very, one of my guidances, let's say, even though it's not conscious, I can always feel it. I can always count on it, even though it's in an inconsistent function. I can count on it when it speaks to me. Let's say that. I have an interesting story about this. I mean, it's very complex, but I want to make it simple. With this whole thing of fears from the past. Well, let me say this, that to me, this is about your radar, basic radar, and what kind of relationships you get into, what kind of situations, whether it fits or not. And when Excel was talking about your decision-making strategy, this is so important to sort of clearing up the past. We can't do it all psychologically. We can't do it all with ego. We can't do it all with prayer and meditation. Really, it's our radar, it's our body information from our decision-making strategy that's going to sort of clean out and keep us healthy and keep us in, from being just stuck in the past to moving forward to higher frequencies. And as some of you know, over a year ago, I was in chemo and radiation, and I grew up with stories from my dad and my uncles that were in World War II about radiation sickness from Hiroshima and the bomb and all of this stuff. So I remember being terrified by what radiation could do. So when it came time to make decisions, health decisions about what I was going to do, I had to really face that fear. And I decided I listened to my body. I made a good decision. It was right. All that stuff took a while to do. But I remember the very first radiation treatment I had, even though I felt completely confident in my decision, I was terrified. There's this huge machine and these huge sounds, and it's very scary to your body. And lights were flashing, and I remember just this very complete instinctive message that radiation is light. That's what it is. And for me, in that instant, I could go, oh, I can receive light. It's not scary now. I mean, it's still scary to my body, but it was a shift in my frequency, my whole survival system. And from that time on, I knew I was going to be fine. And I am. But that frequency change, that perspective change of making a correct decision, moving into the action, that automatically changes the frequency and that's what keeps you healthy.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Anna. Wow. Pretty amazing. Yeah. And glad that you're doing so well now. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And for you, Shelley, you also have this as well.
Yes, I have the full strength. And it's the only trait I have defined in my survival instinct. And before I knew about BG5, I literally lived in my past in fear. My past just kept repeating. And I lived in that terrified state that Anna's talking about constantly, because I was constantly feeling like I was constantly on alert for all of the things that had happened in the past, trying to protect myself from them happening again in the future. And man, this was such a relief to understand this trait when I started learning about it, and literally allowed me to just completely let go of a lot of the past experiences that had kept me on high alert my whole life. And it really impacted my nervous system too. And I'm still learning about and unwinding how much these things that do impact us. But my nervous system is much calmer now than it has been in my whole life. And I also, one of the things that like Anna described this as radar, and I agree with her there in that it's just this instinctual awareness of knowing in your body where to move to get something that's needed for someone. I find myself just automatically doing that without thinking about it. And I've done that my whole life, often taking care of other people. I have the 27 as well in my values, and these things seem to just go hand in hand. So being really tuned into, other people's needs, that wore me out too. I learned how to let go and take care of myself first before I try looking after other people. Another thing I've learned through this. But ultimately the 44, it is I can just be in somebody's presence or their aura and know what they need before they even know they need it themselves. And I'll bring it to them and they go, oh, how did you know I was just looking for that? That happens quite a bit for me and has throughout my life. And it literally is just a body awareness. It's nothing I think about, nothing that comes into my mind. It's just, oh, here, have this, do this. And having the full strength, where that's really helped me is in working in my career, working with other people, listening to what their issues are, their problems are, and helping them solve it. I also tend to gather lots of information, both from my body awareness and through the mind. It's intellectual as well, but it all comes together then, and I know what I need to tell people with the 26 that they need to know about, that they need before they know they need it. So the messaging, and thinking about it in terms of managing egos or the personnel manager. I do have that instinctive sense too, before I know mentally that there's something wrong and I need to touch base or check in with somebody. And then it does turn out that there's something amiss and they need help. And I'm able to then help out if I can. So yes, it's been really helpful. This is also the sales and marketing strength in BG5 terms. And I have done retail sales along my, when I was younger, and seemed to instinctively know what people were looking for when they came in the shop, and could kind of guide and direct them, listening to them to help them get what they need. So I love this strength. I really, it's such a big part of who I am.
Yeah. Beautifully shared. Yeah, thank you so much, Shelley, and a really good illustration of how not only the trait works, but also how the strength works as well. And yes, let's go to Lori.
Hello. I don't have the 44, I have the 26, but I have a good friend who's very clairvoyant who has the 44, and he is obsessed with past lives. And when he meet in the coming to meet, or what's coming to meet him, he will like immediately just review the past lives of the person. And I couldn't understand where this was coming from until I realized he had the 44. And I think it's kind of a defense against anything from the past that might come back, might catch up with him, or might influence the future or the present. So I just thought it was an interesting manifestation. And he does seem very aware of what other people need and what's happened in the past. That seems to be a big focus for this person who has this trait.
Wow. Yeah, really great illustration of that as well. I love that. Thank you so much, Lori. And one of the things that you'll notice that grounds the 44 is the 24. And if you think about the 24 is actually in the mind, and it's about going over things again and again and again. So it's kind of like going over the past again and again and again, which grounds it, which can also, again, can cause those fears for the past, or this over focus on the past, where, again, it's interesting that what your friend does as well is do past life regressions, or, take a look at things from the past. So it makes a lot of sense. Love it.
I wanted to add another comment about how propaganda works. And,
yes.
we tend to have a negative scenario around propaganda, but it's basically, like Shelley was saying, this is our marketing. And depending on the storyline that we're expressing, that can be positive or negative. You can sell to somebody's fears and just grab all their money, or you can sell to their fears and help them work through them, or get to what they really need. But the most important part about this is that a lot of our stories are not just from the past, but they can keep the past going. And whoever, there's a saying, whoever tells the stories controls the culture. And again, coming back to decision-making strategy, the culture changes through our individual work. Our collective changes as an individual frequency changes, and then we affect the collective or the culture. So there's this interrelatedness, because this is about relationships. As we use our decision-making strategy and our frequency can change, and we have less static in our lives, things like that, or in our work. That's when people begin to kind of question the storyline of the culture or the collective or the economy or the climate, or the subjects that go around. People can go deeper into really what's going on, not just the vocabulary, the sales pitch, the media pitch.
Yes, yeah, and really good point with the alertness to what's going on. Again, there can be propaganda can work, quote unquote, in a good way or in a very negative way. Again, as we're going into the midterm elections, there's a lot of quote unquote propaganda at work, as different candidates are promoting themselves, and also taking a look at in a sense, that fear of the future, of going over, in a sense, the past over and over and over again, and that we're at this, in a sense, tipping point of moving from the past, right, from the past era of the era of planning, moving into the era of the individual. It's almost like, okay, there's this fear of the past, and it feels like this big transformation that's coming as we move into 2027. What can we let go of, so we're not carrying forward the baggage of the past, right? The baggage from the era of planning as we move into the era of the individual. And as Anna spoke to, and also as Ixel spoke to earlier, really trusting our decision-making strategy, trusting who we are, allows us to filter through the propaganda, through all of the messaging, through all of the narratives that are out there, to find what feels truly correct for each of us. And I think that is, one of the things of following our decision-making strategy, is we can really find out what our truth is and what is true for us. And it doesn't matter what all of the what your parents had said, what everything else in the past has said. It comes down to you and what is true for you in following your decision-making strategy. And that's what's really important in moving into that era of the individual. Yeah, thank you for that, Anna, as well. All right, so we've taken a look at the trait 44. Let's take a look at the shadow of the trait 44. So when we take a look at how you get affected when you get connected, taking a look at the shadow of trait 44, and in a sense, what to look at if you don't have trait 44. So in taking a look at trait 44, especially if you do have 26 on the other side, right? So 26 is about sales and marketing. But if you don't have the 44 on the other side, it can be a lack of awareness of how and when and what to effectively sell, or what to effectively transmit to others, right? So you may have something to sell, but you don't know when and how or what to effectively do that. So the question is, do you find yourself over-promising or making promises that you can't keep? Do you have a tendency to over-exaggerate or come across as too salesy? Because this is where, the salesperson can get the bad rap. When we're taking a look at the problem, again, you know how to sell, especially if you have the 26 on the other side, but without instinctive awareness, it can be difficult to know when and how and where to effectively transmit what to transmit that will support others. And you may have a tendency, again, to over-exaggerate and make promises you can't keep. So working with others can help you stay in integrity in terms of how and when and what you sell to the tribe, right? So again, we can have, in a sense, sort of empty promises or empty sales, and not really being alert to what people really need, not being alert to what people really want. And that can be true whether you have the 26 or not. Again, it gets exaggerated, if you will, if you have the 26, because it's something that you're naturally attracting. But again, without having the 44, you may not have the awareness of really being present to what needs to happen now, or what needs to be sold now, or what people are really wanting, or what they're really needing. It's interesting. I have the 26. My husband has the 44. And just as an example with the 44, he is like, he will notice the details of things. He will notice things that, like, I don't even see it. But he's so alert in that way that he captures all of these details. And again, this is one of our electromagnetics, meaning it's, we have the strength when we connect, right? He's alert to what needs to happen, and what is happening in the environment. And then I can see, what needs to be brought to the table, or what needs to be sold, or what idea needs to be brought forth, based on his awareness. So it's this is a really great electromagnetic, especially for selling, getting the word out there. This is also, when we take a look at the transmitter, it is the creative strength of enterprise, right? So it is, being, and when we take a look at enterprise business, right, it depends on selling. If you're not selling things, you're not in business. So it can be quite powerful. Again, it can be used for good. It can also be used for not so good as well. So I think, Lori, you were saying that you have the 26, but you don't have the 44. So I'd love to hear how this shows up for you. Oh, looks like, there you go.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was talking while I was on mute, while I was muted. Oh my, I have my discipline and judgment, both conscious and unconscious, in the 26. And I'm in charge of communications for an organization, but volunteer organization. And I know that fortunately, they give me the events that need to be publicized. And I know that I can effectively communicate what they're doing, but I have no idea, because I don't have the 44 on the other side, what the reaction is going to be in terms of how many people will attend an event. And I almost always get it the opposite of what it is. I'll think that no one's going to want to do this, and then there'll be 1 million people that come, or I'll think this is going to be great, and like there'll be 4 people or something. So I'm assuming that's missing the 44. But the 26 does, I do feel this ability to communicate and transmit information, especially to my tribe. I do feel like there's an influence there, so that it can be very strong if I really believe it. And if I don't, I don't think I have very much ability in this. But that's how I experience having the 26 without the 44.
Yeah, really great example, Lori. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Beautiful. And I don't know, Ixel or Leanna, if there's anything that you would like to add, or anything that you see, even if you don't have trait 44 and you don't have trait 26, and how that shows up for you.
I do have trait 44, and it is on quality 2, which is what today is. And I have noticed that this is very instinctive. And so there was a time I have a 6-2 public role. So I did a lot of trial and error in the beginning of my life, and I was hyper aware. And so there was a misuse of energy there, because I was so focused on being aware about my surroundings. And if we talk about my motivation, that's my transference to be in survival. And this, just to state that I know what this feels like in different parts of my life. And so I wanted to call out the people with the 6 line to recognize that, and maybe this would affect everyone when I think about it, the things that you have said earlier about trusting, because this is instinctual. So we can decide that we believe something with our mind, but if we have any instincts that have been saved throughout our experience, it's going to be here and it's going to show up. And so it's not something you can control with your mind. So
Mm.
if you have heard on, on this call today that you can trust your decision making strategy, maybe you can't, but maybe you can decide to experiment with it, because maybe it works sometimes when you try it. And I know it's different for different people. Some people are radical and they jump in and they really go with their strategy and authority, but maybe you don't, maybe you haven't. And it's because there's an instinct here to say, but this is not true. And so where can you find some information on your chart that helps you, just with the like the stories that happen here, verify, oh yeah, I know this about myself, when I don't get in the middle of it. Because oftentimes the one thing we have to do is remove the story that we have of it, because it's not real. It's propaganda that has been used against us, because you shouldn't trust your instincts. And so
Mm.
when you recognize that, you can start trying to find the stories that support who you are, and decide, did you decide that with your mind, or did you decide that with your body? And maybe having some stories from your own past will allow you to jump into some small experiments with your strategy and authority. Because if you're not doing that, and this is the don't just talk about it, do it, a line coming. It's like this is of no use. To know this information on a mental level will not
Mm.
help you when we get to 2027. You don't have much time to really decondition, get clear, get aligned, really get connected with your own strategy and authority. So this is the alertness that we have from the past, that when you say something but you don't do it, it doesn't necessarily work. And we're moving into an era where what you say and what you do, and if they're aligned, will really matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Really good point, Excel. And this awareness as well. I think it's interesting because you said this, and also Anna and Shelley said this as well. It can also be, even if you do have it defined, it can also be used in an unhealthy way as well, where you're ultra alert, that it can also fry you out as well. And so there always has to be balance. And I love what you said about, it really is about experimenting. It is about not only learning mentally about what these different aspects are, but seeing really how they show up for you, and integrating this information into who you are, and have bringing forth that confidence of who you are. So as we move into this new era, we can take a look at all of this baggage from the past, and what can we let go of, what has been conditioned, what has been that what have we believed that's not true, etc. That baggage from the past, how can we bring our alertness forward so that we can really see the stories or the baggage from the past, experiment with who we are now, really understand this information at a deep level, so we really can ultimately experiment to see how we can trust our decision making strategy and how all of this works. Thank you so much, Excel.
I
Beautiful.
have another comment. I was listening to someone in marketing and sales, and they were talking about the dopamine fix in sales,
Mm.
how to use that, how to get more clients, and this and that. I was thinking, wait a minute, I mean, you can sell a lot of stuff, like creating scarcity and fear and that next fix. This is going to fix me. This is going to make me feel better. But it's how you use that, because in sales, a lot of times there's a lot of pressure in the immediate. You got to buy it now because it won't be there tomorrow or next week or something. But this really wears you out. When you were just talking about, Karen, about trying, being this is exhausting if you're always going for that dopamine fix as a seller or a buyer. It's just, you wear down, and you can't stay at that level. It just isn't realistic. And at some point you either collapse or you figure something out. But innately, yeah, the propaganda will tell us what stories to believe, and in our head, the stories that we believe or not, but really fundamentally, when you meditate or when you're in those moments of pure love or when you're sick or in those vulnerable, intimate energies, that's where you're more pure and your body can talk to you. Your body can say what it has to say. No, you don't have to hurry up. No, you don't have to buy this thing today or tomorrow. Or maybe it's really interesting, but this particular version isn't the right one. Your body starts to communicate with you when you're sort of in those neutral or those positive zones. And I just think it's interesting. That might be something to be aware of, is that dopamine fix,
Yeah.
because it's rampant in our culture.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And if you take a look again, what grounds it is kind of going over things again and again and again and again and again. Again, it can be the stories that we tell ourselves over and over and over again, or the stories that we're told over and over again, that then create our past. And again, that kind of next fix, or the next thing, and going over and over and over it again. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much, Anna. Well, beautiful. Well, let's wrap up today. And I would love to hear from all of our panelists, especially as we are moving from the 44 and into the 1 this week. Any advice or suggestions you may have for people to pay attention to or be alert to this week. So once again, if you are new to BG5, you can get your free report by visiting our website at bg5businessinstitute.com. You can also check out our free resource library, where we have past recordings of BG5 Live, also a lot of other materials as well, to help you get familiar with BG5 and BG5, with BG5 Live, and also with BG5 and what it's all about. Also, we do have courses that are coming up in January, so would love to have you on board for the January classes. We have the best place to start is with the foundation course. And the foundation course, you really get a solid foundation of what this information is all about. And just like what Ixel and Anna were talking about, following your decision-making strategy. What does that mean? And how do I know what my decision-making strategy is? And how do I learn about all of these different traits and how they show up in my design? That's where you start, is the BG5 Foundation course. So would love to have you join us. All right, so let's wrap up everything. And I would love to hear from each of our panelists. What are things that people should be alert to as we move into purpose fulfilled through transformation? How do we, in a sense, complete the past, right, with the fears of the past and moving towards transformation? What are some things to be aware of with the 44, again, as we also move into the 1 this week as well? Anna, would you like to get us started?
Yes. So this is so much connected to smell. I would just muse on that for the week. With the politics in the state, well, in lots of areas, but with our elections, or a new or old relationship, or conversation, or it's getting to shopping season for holidays and gatherings and stuff like that. Does this smell right? Does this, what's in the air? What's in, what? Experiment with that sense of smell and what it tells you, and whether you believe it or not.
Yeah, beautiful. Yes, thank you, Anna. How about for you, Lori?
I would say that we should stay alert to what we're coming to meet and what's coming to meet us. And with the 44 and with the 1, it's a really good time to think about, or to get ready to do old things, and not only do old things in new ways, but do new things in new ways. So really to kind of really embrace that.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much, Lori. And how about for you, Excel?
I would like to say to those people that are listening to this that have never heard this before, you brought this to my awareness when you said it earlier, Karen. if you don't know what this is about, you should check it out, because what it really is, and I've seen this, it's a meme or it's a joke about how kids don't, as a parent, you don't get instructions for your baby and you wish there were instructions. These are the instructions your parents were missing. And these are the instructions you were missing for your kids if you're a parent. And there have been so many things that have been happening that in the past, circumstances, different patterns, different ways of being, different ways of recognizing things, that if you don't know what your design is, even though this information has been out there and maybe you've been aware of it, but not really interested, this is an invitation, a call for you to check it out, because once it can feel overwhelming. And it is, there's a lot of information and it's wonderful because it is so logical. And of course, when you get beyond the surface, it might not be for you, but just for you to know how you can count on yourself, how you can trust yourself, regardless of anything that's happening around, and to recognize what is for you and what is not for you. There is such a level of freedom that is available on the other side of knowing what your strategy and authority is and being able to follow that. So that is my take.
Love it. Love it. And here's the thing, again, knowing not only is it a user's guide, if you will, for your kids, but it's a user's manual for yourself and how to run and use your own life and what you're good at and what your skills and what your talents are and what your purpose is. So it can have a huge impact. Thank you so much, Excel. And let's wrap everything up with Shelley.
Yeah, this is wonderful. Thanks, Excel and Lori and Anna. All of what you've said is amazing. For me, I'm really recognizing that this is really about using this time with the 44s here to really look at what in your past are you ready to let go of, so that you can prepare for a new direction going forward. And one of the most amazing grounding experiences for myself in being able to let go of my past was in learning what my decision-making strategy is, or strategy and authority as Excel, that's the human design term for it. Once you can really get grounded in yourself, then you know what, you literally don't need to pay any attention to the propaganda, because if you're following your decision-making, you will allow it to lead you to the things that you need. You don't need anybody to sell you anything. And I think right now that's been so huge in our culture. It's such a big distraction for everybody to be sold so many things. I always go back to the root of the word to sell is selge, and it means to serve. And so ultimately we're here to serve each other. And one of the ways we can do that best is to each of us align with our own self and purpose and get really grounded and honor that in all the rest of us. And then we meet each other, as Lori said, what's coming to meet you and what you're coming to meet. We meet each other from a place of being able to serve each other instead of trying to sell each other things we don't really need or that are just distracting to us. So I wholeheartedly agree with Excel. If you don't know this information yet and you're just getting to know a little bit about it, check it out, because it's probably one of the most profound tools that you can use for understanding who you are and what your real purpose in life is, and really ground yourself into trusting yourself and your own decisions, and knowing that when you do that, you're going to be in the right place at the right time for the things that you're here to do and the people you're here to meet and work with.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And in business, right? We're working with people on a daily basis. We're working with clients, we're working with coworkers, we're working with bosses, we're working with, managers, whatever it happens to be. Part of what business is all about is working with others. So when you can understand yourself and when you can understand the other, there's a whole other level of connection, of communication, of working together that's available. But really true if you really trust yourself and know yourself and have confidence in yourself. And I think that's also what the system really provides. And I think the alertness, like I said, the alertness to the transformation, because next week we're moving into creative self-expression, which is ultimately, when in the era of the individual, each of us owning our own uniqueness and our own unique expression. And so I love what you said, Shelley, also of, it's the alertness of what to let go of in the past so we can successfully move forward into the future. Beautiful. All right, everyone. It has been our absolute pleasure. Thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you to everyone who is here live, and look forward to seeing you all next week. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.